Welcome aboard, everybody. Dr. Peter Glidden here, your steadfast advocate for health, welcoming you and yours to another live edition of Metaphysical Thursday right here on the Dr. Glidden Show. If you're watching the live stream on YouTube and you would like to join the worldwide chat room for absolutely no charge, please visit the website, thedrgliddenshow.tv, thedrgliddenshow.tv. Click on the links and join the fun. Metaphysical Thursday. On Metaphysical Thursdays, we talk about those things relative, guess what, to metaphysics. And metaphysics is the branch of science which is talked about. It is the red-headed stepchild of science in the world today that contemporary scientists, contemporary doctors, contemporary physicists want absolutely nothing to do with. Metaphysics, of course, concerns itself with the phenomena in the universe which are unmeasurable, unproven. For instance, the existence of the soul, the existence of a spiritual force, consciousness itself, right? All of these things are in the realm of metaphysics. And of course, if the soul exists, then it must have an intimate relationship with health, and holistic physicians investigate this relationship. Well, not exclusively, but wholeheartedly. Holistic physicians are savvy, mate, to the relationship between the indwelling spirit inside the human body and the level of health that that body has or does not have. And we talk about these subjects here on most Thursdays in this segment in the first hour, Metaphysical Thursday. So, in the past, I've had a yoga practitioner, a yogi of sorts, a modern-day yogi, Govindan Satchidananda, who leads a yoga group outside of Montreal in Canada and has done remarkable work on the subcontinent of India. This very socially active man, and he spoke to us about the Hindu point of view of the relationship of the soul to the human body and things like that. Today, we're going to talk about the relationship of New Testament and Old Testament stuff for people of faith. Now remember, this is a non-sectarian show. We don't espouse any one particular religious point of view. Quite frankly, this isn't even a show that espouses religion per se, but we do advocate the notion of the presence of the spirit in the human body, and we are a platform for people of different faiths, different walks of life, different sects and segments of society to come and voice their opinion on metaphysical subjects. Today, believe it or not, an unlikely candidate to voice his opinion on metaphysics for people of faith, especially people of the Christian faith, Marvin Ropp. Mr. Ropp is retired as a chief warrant officer after 20 years of honorable military service, of which the last 17 of his 20-year naval career, he was a Navy SEAL and a Naval Special Warfare Command's SEAL Team 3, SEAL Team 1, and SDV Team 1. Yeah, that's right. Marvin Ropp is the kind of person who can kill you with his bare hands. A remarkable human being. Marvin and I have spent many an hour together, and he shared with me many stories of his exploits during his military career. After his military service, Mr. Ropp decided to pursue a career in commercial construction management, and he received a Bachelor of Science degree in construction management at Weber State University and received his CQE Level 1 certification from ACI Construction Certification Commission in November of 2005. In 2007, Mr. Ropp, living in Utah, well, guess what happened? The construction industry bottomed out. And that's when he found, he found Youngevity years before, but he started applying Youngevity wholeheartedly, has had remarkable health experiences with Youngevity, and he feels like, and he is, healthier now than he was 12 years ago at the age of 42. Osteoarthritis, infertility, hair loss, sore joints, fatigue, everything was going downhill for Marvin Ropp until he found longevity. And when he found longevity, as is the experience of most people, his life turned around. And I'm very, very happy, proud, quite frankly, and honored to have Marvin Ropp join us here on Metaphysical Thursdays. Marvin, are you with me?
Can you hear me, Dr. Glidden?
You are coming in loud and clear, Marvin. Now, you and I were at the Hoosier Jamboree in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I listened to your lecture. You have uncovered some important, interesting scriptural relationships between the pharmaceutical industry and life, and I'm wondering if you can elucidate the audience as to what you are talking about and what you've discovered.
Well, yes, Dr. Glidden, thank you first and foremost for having me on the show, and thank you for that kind of introduction. Most people that get to know me, I am not the killer that Dr. Glidden says I am. I'm a pretty passionate guy. I like that. I used to teach people how to blow things up, but now I teach people how to heal and get better, So it's a different profession, but either way, I love doing this. I love what I do. I love traveling, teaching, lecturing, and one of the things within the last 6 months, matter of fact, 2014 was a tremendous revelation for me regarding the biblical responsibility we have in teaching people health and wellness. And I came across a very interesting study one morning as I was reading my Bible, and I came across the word witchcraft and sorcery. Of course, my curiosity, I always like to go back to its original Greek origin and see what the Greek is, and come to find out it was the Greek word pharmakia. Now, if those of you who are biblical scholars, you may take notes, and those of you who are not, that's okay. You can maybe just listen and find it fascinating. But with that said, all of a sudden, I looked up the definition of pharmakia, and interesting enough, the Greek definition is to administer drugs, practice, administer drugs. Also, the definition means sorcery and witchcraft. And so, as further looking into it, I remember when I was about 20 years ago, I was sitting in church, and I listened to one of the pastors. I had been going to church. He was a senior pastor there, Mike McIntosh. Many of you may have heard of Mike McIntosh, Horizon Christian Fellowship out of San Diego, California. And now Mike McIntosh just real quickly kind of talked about his past experience as a hippie. He was a radical hippie in the 60s and got radically saved. And he was relating to the sin of witchcraft and sorcery as the same thing as using drugs. He used the term pharmakia. And I remember that sermon. I never could forget that sermon. And but this new discovery this kind of rediscovery of this pharmakia in the Bible got my interest. So I started doing a very in-depth study of the Old Testament, New Testament. And because I knew that in the Old Testament, witchcraft and sorcery were strictly forbidden. We have many references there, and those of you who have read your Bible probably understand, know some of the scriptural references, and I'm not going to kind of go too specific. But one of the things I was trying to do is connect the Old Testament to the New Testament regarding pharmakia, the use of drugs, administer drugs, and witchcraft and sorcery. I did find 3 references, Dr. Glidden, in the book, the New Testament, Galatians 5:20, Revelations 9:21, and Revelations 18:23. What I found was I was kind of excited, but also another way I was just really alarmed, because what I discovered was that neither one of these 3 biblical references, when they use the word pharmakia, Galatians 5:20, it translates that word into sorcery. Revelation 9:21 translates that into sorcery. Galatians 5:20 translated into witchcraft, but Revelation 9:21 translates into sorcery. But it's the same definition. So, further investigation, I could not find any ties to the Old Testament from these 2 biblical references, not until I came to Revelations 18:23, which is a direct quote of Nahum 3:4. Those of you who are biblical scholars know that Nahum is an account of the complete destruction of Nineveh, which was destroyed 612 BC. And it talks about the wickedness of Nineveh. It talks about all the things that Nineveh was doing. And one of the things that was so fascinating is that Nineveh was spared by God 150 years before its destruction. Jonah was called to go preach to Nineveh. And if those of you who have been read the book of Jonah, you will know that God would call Jonah to go preach to Nineveh and tell them to stop doing the wickedness. Now, he doesn't list the wickedness in the book of Jonah, what they were doing, that God was so angry. But we do know the story of Jonah. You know, he reluctantly went after jumping out the boat, got swallowed by a whale. Of course, he went back and he did what God told him to do. He warned the Ninevites, and the Ninevites stopped doing what God was so angry. And what really got my attention was Nahum 3:4. It talks about that they were leading peoples and nations astray by their witchcraft and sorcery. Now, Dr. Glidden, that's an old biblical reference in Revelation, in the book of Revelation.
So what you're telling me is that when you translate the word pharmakia, which is found in Galatians 5:20, Revelations 9:21, Revelations 18:23. When you translate that word, not only does it mean witchcraft and sorcery, but it also means the administration of drugs. So what we've got here, ladies and gentlemen, is scriptural reference to the evil nature of the pharmaceutical industry. And I'd like you just to take a look around the world and see, how is the pharmaceutical industry working for you? How is it working for your loved ones? How is it working? Is your health better? Are your finances better? Are things in your life improving? Are you feeling stronger and more successful every day? Or is your health failing? And if your health is failing, why is it failing? Perhaps we've taken the wrong dog to the hunt. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Peter Glidden here with my very special guest, Marvin Ropp. Now, Marvin, this is very interesting. So just to recap here, right, you have discovered in the Old Testament, Galatians 5:20, Revelations 9:21, Revelations 18:23, references to the word pharmakia. And pharmakia translates to sorcery, witchcraft, and the use of prescription medications. And I am assuming that the references that you have uncovered do not recommend these things in a positive light. These things, of course, are recommended in a negative light. Am I so far so good?
Exactly. Now, what I want to do is kind of get a little bit more in depth and detail about these three biblical references. Before I do that, I actually went to the Webster Dictionary, and I have an old college edition, second edition, 1982 Webster Dictionary. And if you look up the word pharmacy, it actually gives you the its Greek origin, pharmakia. It leaves out the definition of sorcery and witchcraft, but it has the exact same definition as the Greek definition of pharmakia. It is the administering use of drugs, medication, practice of medicine. But if you look up a couple words above that, you'll see the word pharmaceutical. Interesting enough, they left in the definition of pharmaceutical. They show you its Greek origin, but they have in there to practice witchcraft and medicine in the Webster Dictionary. And the funny part about it is the new online dictionaries and a lot of the new dictionaries don't have that. They left that definition out. So Webster, you know, Noah Webster is the man of God, and he had a great respect of God's word, and he gave us the correct definition of pharmacy and pharmakia. And so basically we're finding here is that there is in the Navy SEALs, we call them the enemy, right? When we were looking to take out an enemy position, we always look at see where how the enemy tries to maneuver around us. Well, we can definitely see there's an underground movement here, as you could say, trying to dumb down the average citizen as to the practice and administer drugs as it pertains to the biblical. Thou shalt not do this. And so let me go to the biblical. Galatians 5:20 is a list of all the things, I call it the list of the sinful nature. Revelation 9:21 is actually, let me back up a little bit here and just kind of give our audience a little prefaces on what Revelation 9:21 leads up to. If you look at the book of Revelation, It's the beginning of the 6th chapter is the beginning of the 7 seal judgments. Every time a seal of that is opened up, there was a judgment pronounced on mankind. And those judgments were pretty severe, Dr. Glidden. They were pretty severe. By the time you get to Revelation 9:21, you are in the 7th seal, but within the 7th seal, you have 7 trumpets. And each time a trumpet was opened up or sounded, there was a tremendous judgment pronounced on mankind, on the inhabitants of the earth. These are future judgments that we can read of. These are future prophecies. Revelation 9:21. Interesting enough, Dr. Glidden, there's 4 things that God was very angry with the inhabitants of the earth, and that was because they would not stop committing murder, sexual immorality, theft, and pharmakia.
Come on, pharmakia too?
It says it right in there. Pharmakia is translated sorcery.
So sexual immorality, theft, murder, and the use of prescription medications, the use of drugs. You've got to be kidding me.
We must be talking about General Hospital, huh?
Wow, this is unbelievable. So you know what this means, Marvin? This means that if you are a person of faith, if you are a pastor, if you are a reverend, if you are a man or a woman of God, and you have taken that mantle on in this lifetime, and if you abide, if you have decided, made the choice in your life to abide by Scripture, then you must, therefore, disallow the use of pharmacy. You must recommend that your parishioners not use the pharmaceutical method because God has deemed it to be evil and bad. Am I fishing in the right pond?
You are right on, Dr. Glidden. Pharmakia is strictly forbidden. Okay, now we are trying to mask that within our congregations, people of faith. And if people of faith would understand this, we could make a huge impact in delivering our people from the bondage of pharmakia. Think about this. Pharmakia, the administered use of drugs, is not the same thing as nutrition. It alters what God has created.
Marvin, we're up against a hard break. We're going to take that subject up when we come back. I'm getting tingly all over, and that doesn't happen very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Peter Glidden, and this is Fire Your MD Now. Welcome to Metaphysical Thursday. Our very special guest, Marvin Ropp. Do not even think about touching that dial. It's getting real now, ladies and gentlemen. It's getting real now. If you are a person of faith, if you are a person of the Christian faith in the world, you want to pay attention to this. Because remember, ultimately what we're up to here is a revolution, a non-militant, peaceful revolution of hearts and minds, a revolution of information and results. Science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition developed by the world's leading expert in medical nutrition, the physician, literally, not figuratively, who wrote the book on medical nutrition, has put together health recovery protocols, foundation medical nutrition for the masses. And these protocols are available to you right now, today, through your longevity representative. If you like what we're talking about and you're listening on terrestrial radio, then listen to the commercial breaks and call the number that your radio station gives out. There are representatives in your town waiting to take your call to give you information about what you can do to start the road to recovery of your health. If you found me all by your lonesome, and you want information, you like what we're talking about, call this number, 855-347-3696. That's 855-347-3696. And if you were taken to this program, shown this radio show, directed to my program by a friend or a stranger or somebody who's already a longevity member, get with them to get information about taking the next step. The information brought to the table here by Marvin Ropp is a potential game changer. Marvin, welcome back.
Thank you, Dr. Glidden. And as I said before the hard break, it even gets better than that. So let's move from Revelation 9:21 all the way through Revelation 18:23. And there's more judgments pronounced on mankind. But by the time we get to the book of Revelation 18:23, that's the final destruction of the Babylonian system, which is a symbolic for the world system outside of God's will. But I just want to quote to you Revelation 18:23, and it's a small quoted Bible. For by thy pharmakia were all nations deceived. Now, not just one nation, but all nations were deceived. That's why God had to destroy the final destruction of the Babylonian system. The same thing happened to Nineveh in 612 BC. God had to finally destroy Nineveh because of the sorcery and witchcraft, which is nothing more than the practice and administer drugs and pharmakia.
Read that to me once more. Read that to me once more, Marvin. Read that to me once more.
Revelation 18:23. This is the King James translation. For by thy sorceries, for by thy pharmakia, were all the nations deceived.
For by thy pharmakia, all nations were deceived. By thy pharmakia, all nations were deceived. Well, look around, ladies and gentlemen. How's your health working for you? How are those prescription medications working for you now? Is your health better? Is your life better? Are you feeling better? Is your family better? Is everything hunky-dory? Are you sleeping okay? Is your energy okay? Are your knees okay? Is your sex drive okay? How's life? Is life getting better and better for you, or are you falling apart at the seams? Are your loved ones suffering beneath the wheel of chronic diseases? Are your loved ones being drugged to death and not getting any better? How about your bank account? How are those prescription medications working against your income, working against your hard-earned money? Are you getting richer every year, or are the pharmaceutical companies dripping it out of you day by day, week by week, month by month? Pick your heads up, look around, and ask yourself the simple question: do you feel better now than you did yesterday by following the advice of the MDs? I'm going to assume the answer is no, but don't get me started. All right, Marvin, this is unbelievable stuff. What next?
Well, when I first discovered this, I was like, wow, I almost turned white, and I was shaking, and I said, you know what? This means that a licensed medical doctor is in the Greek definition, he's a licensed to practice witchcraft and sorcery. He's a licensed witch doctor. If you think about it, from the Greek,
Marvin, you're speaking my language, brother. You're speaking my language.
The Greek writer, the Greek language is a very profound language. When a Greek writer says something, there was no mistake what he was saying. And he was basically saying, look, if you are in bondage to pharmakia, you're not going to be pleasing to God. And I want to speak to men and women of faith. And look, I know that this may come to a tremendous shock to you, especially if you're in the medical profession. But see, you didn't know this until now. But please, look at these biblical references for yourself. And, I want you to pray about this, because not only I'm speaking to the people of faith now. Now, those that are not of faith, you just listen for a second. But I want to speak to the people of faith, because we have the ability. We have the ability to make change. We have the ability to educate. We have the ability to turn around. Just like Nineveh, when Jonah went to Nineveh and said, look, guys, did you realize that God is about to destroy you in 40 days? Now, could you imagine what would happen if some angel would come on this earth and say, guys, all the medical doctors will be burned up to hell in 40 days if anyone stopped practicing medicine? How many medical doctors would continue to practice pharmakia if they would be told that that's what's going to happen in 40 days? Well, that's what happened with Nineveh. When Jonah came there, he said, look, guys, you look at me. I've got seaweed still wrapped in my neck from being swallowed in the whale. And, of course, the Ninevites were, wow, this guy's serious. And, and maybe God is serious, too. But, the same thing is true now. Dr. Wallach is serious. He has been on a mission. And when I showed these biblical references, Dr. Wallach, he was like, wow, that's it, Marvin, that's it. We have now the biblical authority and responsibility not only to rescue our loved ones from the bondage of the witch doctor.
Well, it's a remarkable thing, and so, if you're a person of faith, right, then you have taken upon yourself that responsibility, and you draw your inspiration and you navigate your life based upon the Scriptures. And so here we have it in not so plain language that you have uncovered, which directly points to the net negative effects, the evil nature of the pharmaceutical industry and the way that medicine is dispersed, not only in the United States, but in all nations of the world. This could potentially be a game changer, Marvin. Now, look, we only have a limited time left. I want to talk on as many subjects as we can. How does this stuff that you're talking about segue into genetically modified organisms? What's the deal with that?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because if you look at, you were referring to the pharmaceutical companies, but basically the pharmaceutical companies are under the thumb of, guess who? The chemical companies. The chemical companies own the pharmaceutical companies, and they also own all the seed companies. Yeah, Merck, Bayer, Monsanto, all those companies, they own the seed companies, and therefore they are genetically modifying our grains. And they're getting the same they're doing that because they can make the same kind of money off a genetically modified grain as they can on a combination of drugs. So it's about the money. The chemical companies are behind this whole thing. And Dr. Glidden, you've really hit the nail on the head. We talked about the early 1920s when we started the different direction in healthcare and medicine. And if you think about it, chemicals, drugs, alter what God has created. It doesn't matter if it's in the form of drugs or it doesn't matter in the form of genetically modified grains. You know, God, when he created the heavens and earth in 6 days, based on Genesis, he said on the sixth day, he said, it is very good. That term very good in Hebrew is implying he's given us his best. Now think about this, Dr. Glidden. Do you think you and I have more wisdom than God to come in and genetically modify plants and modify drugs to alter the gene function and things like that? Come on, let's get real here.
And yet, this is what happens. So the thesis here is that the chemical companies own the drug companies. The chemical companies own the seed manufacturers. The chemical companies are not only messing with our health directly through the administration and the advocacy of prescription medication, pharmakia, but they're also messing with the food supply in order to make more profits. They're thinking that they're smarter than God. They're thinking that they know more than God. They're thinking that they can throw a wrench into these gears and nothing is going to happen. And the motivation here is money, 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 money. And meanwhile, we suffer, we get sick, we go bankrupt, we die. That's a big, bad voodoo daddy, if you ask me.
Something else I want to add, Dr. Glidden, is that think of it this way. Let's say some of you older ones remember the L.A. riots. Okay, here you are in an urban area, and all of a sudden you have a civil unrest, and all of a sudden, you run out of diabetes medication. How quickly can you escape and evade without diabetes medication before you go into diabetic coma?
Not very long.
Not very long. And you think about this, all those medications that we're dependent upon, what happens all of a sudden the supply of medication is cut off? Well, guess what? You're going down the tube with everybody else because you are in bondage to pharmakia. And this is why Dr. Wallach's message is so important, because we do not have to be in bondage to pharmakia. We have an alternative. And Dr. Glidden and Dr. Wallach have been the forefront of this, the 90 Nutries. And I really am excited about being part of Dr. Glidden's show here and helping everybody understand we do have a biblical responsibility. Now, those of you who are men and women of faith, if you're in the medical industry, think of it this way. We're asking you to reconsider. And if you think about it, Dr. Glidden, a medical doctor is licensed to practice pharmakia. He's not licensed to practice nutrition. And that's the sad thing about it. We need to change that.
Well, and there's nobody, and I couldn't agree with you more, Marvin. And, the fact of the matter is, for 25 years, I was very active. Well, 20 years. Let's be specific. For 20 years, I was very active politically in attempting to get naturopathic medicine licensed in as many states as was humanly possible. I grew up in the great state of Massachusetts. Massachusetts has had a licensing effort for 25 years to get naturopathic medicine recognized and licensed and regulated to give the citizens of Massachusetts access to naturopathic medicine the same way that they have access to allopathic medicine. 25 years later, still no law. It's unbelievable. So I've given up that. I'm no longer interested in being politically active. What I am interested in and dedicated and motivated about is to grow the Longevity Grassroots Coalition, because what we are attempting to do here in Longevity is to grow a grassroots coalition of the informed people all around the world who are struggling with health, find longevity, try the longevity health recovery strategies, recover their health, and then spread the word. And this is how we're going to change the world, 1 person at a time, through an aggressive attempt to grow a grassroots coalition of the informed. And I got to tell you, man, leave it to an ex-military man to underline this distinction that I'd never thought about before, that the more dependent you are on prescription medications, the less free you are. Right? We rattle our chains to celebrate our freedom. Isn't the Patriot Act a great thing? Yeah, I don't think so. We rattle our prescription medications to celebrate our health. Yeah, I don't think so. Remember, it's not the gun, it's how it's used. It's not the drug, it's how it's used. The way that MDs, witch doctors, and sorcerers are trained to use drugs, guess what? They're the leading cause of death in the United States, the leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States. And look, just ask yourself the question, how are you doing? Are you better now than you were 5 years ago? Are you healthier now than you were 10 years ago? When you project into the future, is it rosy and bright and good, or is it filled with doom and gloom and despair? Ladies and gentlemen, the time is now. Get with the person who told you about this radio show. Listen at the commercial break to the number. Call the number. Get in touch with Longevity and get your way back. Find your way back to the undiscovered country of science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition. We're finishing up the first hour with Marvin. When we come back, stick around. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Finishing out the first hour of Metaphysical Thursday, Marvin Ropp, my very special guest, a retired ex-Navy SEAL of all people, telling us about his understanding of Scripture vis-a-vis pharmakia, which is translated to witchcraft, sorcery, and drugs. So, Marvin, we have 5 minutes left in the show here in this first segment. Let's talk about organic versus GMO. Come on in, Marvin. Are you still with me? Well, holy smokes, I think we might have lost Marvin.
Dr. Glidden. Hey,
there you are, Marvin.
I had it on mute. Okay.
All right, welcome back, brother. So let's talk about GMO versus organic and wrap it up.
Okay. Well, first of all, if you are concerned about chemicals and things like that, you definitely want to buy organic. That means non-chemicals. That means that you have non-genetically modified grains. So you always want to go organic. Unfortunately, organic does not necessarily mean nutritionally enhanced. In the agriculture industry, there's a term called nutrient density in your feed. Well, the same thing is true for human food or human fruits and vegetables. If we have greater nutrient density, which we can only achieve that with minerals. Unfortunately, when you're consuming plants that have been genetically modified, which typically are your Roundup Ready crops, like corn, soybean, and alfalfa and things like that, and your oats and wheat and barley and rye, those plants have been genetically modified, and glyphosate prevents mineral uptake into the plant. Now, what does that mean for our health? Well, as I travel across the Midwest and the Farm Belt, I see a lot of mineral deficiency symptoms in the animals, horses, pigs, cows, goats, chickens, you name it. And once we started feeding these animals with Dr. Wallach's minerals, we were able to reverse these mineral deficiency symptoms very quickly. Now, I did not understand why that was until later on, but now I understand that glyphosate in Roundup, chemical Roundup, prevents mineral uptake in plants. So you think about this, your secondary nutrients, your micronutrients, and there's 60-some minerals required for essential health. And if we're taking and limiting just the primary, secondary micronutrients, which is 16 of those minerals, in the agriculture industry, now we understand why we have all these birth defects in animals, and we have 50% infertility in dairy, according to the American Cattlemen Association. And these numbers that we see in the cows, horses, and pigs are showing up in our 20-year-olds. These 20-year-old childless couples, the first generation is what I call GMO babies. There's the children born in the early 90s. That's when genetically modified grains were first introduced. So now we're living on a nutritional deficiency processed food diet, and it is wreaking havoc, not only in the agriculture industry, but also in our next generation that's replacing us.
Boy, it's crazy. So you're telling me that, the soils themselves are minerally deficient, and when a farmer uses pesticides on the soil, it's going to kill the bacteria in the soil that helps the plant to metabolize the minerals that it needs. And then when you use Roundup, which every farmer in the world uses as weed control, and as an herbicide or a fungicide, or I don't know, weed control, I think, then the presence of the Roundup is going to prevent the plant from absorbing what little minerals there are in the soil, which leads to an even more demineralized plant, which leads to even more demineralized humans, which leads to more death and destruction, all brought to you by Pharmakia. Ladies and gentlemen, this should be a wake-up call. Marvin, a parting shot from you in the last minute and 30 seconds.
Okay, just real quickly, think of it this way. When you consume genetically modified grains, see, a lack of mineral uptake into the plant, that weed is not able to have a healthy immune system. It succumbs to a virus or a fungus and dies. And basically, when we spray chemicals of glyphosate on this Roundup-ready crops, the weed succumbs to these diseases, essentially giving the weeds AIDS. Okay, we are destroying its immune system by a lack of mineral uptake. Now, think about what that does when we eat these Cheerios and we eat all the different fruits and vegetables which have been contaminated with glyphosate. We are limiting mineral uptake, which suppresses our immune system, which allows the diseases to start to have a major impact on our health and wellness.
So, everything connects. The basic take-home message, the chemical industries are killing us figuratively and literally, and it's about time we all got a clue, jumped onto the ark of longevity, picked our heads up out of the sand, and got our health back aggressively with Longevity's nutrition. Marvin, you continue to be the man. We got to have you back to talk more about the relationship between agriculture and health. I expect you more and more each day. Keep up the good work, brother. I'll see you in the future.